BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad and this is your Scottish Football Podcast. It's the news, the views and the analysis you need from our beautiful game on Thursday the 4th of June. And would you believe that Rangers' managerial saga looks to be nearing an end?
And are Rangers close to appointing their new manager? Reports are emerging that the former Southampton boss and former Ibrox defender Russell Martin is the preferred choice and keen to take the role.
Will we see Russell Martin unveiled as the new Ibrox head coach? And we have the build-up to Scotland against Iceland, which begins now.
The nation's been blessed with, top goalkeepers for many years, and I think, things happen in cycles, and the three guys that are here training with us this week all look, top quality young keepers.
We focus on what's becoming a problem position for Steve Clarke. Plus, someone is staying for longer in the Championship.
I really enjoyed, being around the club. Enjoyed working with the people behind the scenes. They made me really welcome. But that's always the case when you're an interim manager. Now the honeymoon's over.
Neil Lennon has big plans for Dunfermline.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Great to have you along this morning, and I'm delighted to say that we've got two of the best in the business. Scott McDermott, Daily Record chief sports writer, no less, with a capital C. Chief. Scott, morning to you.
Good morning, Phil.
And Cammy Bell, former Rangers and Scotland goalkeeper. Cammy, morning. Is it Cammy or Cameron? Have I asked you this before?
I don't know if you have, Phil, but it's Cameron, but certainly everyone calls me Cammy, and yes, I like to stick to Cammy, please.
Does your mum and dad call you Cameron?
No, Cammy. Everyone calls me
Everybody
Cammy.
calls you Cammy?
Yes.
Cameron, for the next 20 minutes, Scott and I are going to give you your proper name. Listen, you're a former Scotland keeper. You deserve a full Christian title in the mornings.
Listen, Cammy's good for me, Phil. Keep it to Cammy. Nice and simple.
Well, listen, I'm going to have a go at you, and I'm also going to have a go at you, Scott, because what's happening here? I mean, you're a former Rangers goalkeeper. Scott, you're the chief sports writer for the Daily Record. Where's the scoops? Where's the intel? Why are you not telling me who the new Rangers manager is?
Well, you called it a saga, Phil, and not a truer word has been said. Oh, man, I think it's been incredible. I mean, I think I've probably flip-flopped with this about 10 times in terms of who's going to be the next Rangers manager. If you'd have said to me probably 4 or 5 days ago, I'd have said Davide Ancelotti was the standout favourite candidate. But obviously in the last couple of days, and I think probably the longer it went on, and Russell Martin's name never really went away. I mean, it feels like about a fortnight people have been saying, he's going to go to Leicester, and I think the longer that didn't happen, and the more you were hearing about the impression that Russell Martin has made on Rangers and the new people involved at the club, you just got the sense that no, it wasn't a done deal with Ancelotti. And obviously, in the last 24, 48 hours, it feels like Russell Martin's now the leading candidate.
Cammy, I'll come to you in just a moment. Scott, I want to, for a serious point, just pick up on this, because you're saying you've been flip-flopping, and with all due respect, you're the guys that will get intel because that's your job. Have Rangers played this so well that there's just no leaks coming from Ibrox, and because of that, trusted sources that you may have had, or with the new board coming in, you don't have your lines of information secure? Is this just the case that all journalists appear to be in the dark? Because I think every one of us has spoken about one manager being the potential new Rangers boss, and then the next day the back pages shows another name that's being linked with the job.
Yeah, I think at the moment you'd have to say that, Phil. I mean, there's always kind of two ways of looking at it. Rangers have either been brilliant at this in terms of absolutely nothing coming out and no one really knows who's going to get the job, or I'm saying about flip-flopping, or has there been a bit of them not knowing exactly who the right man was and maybe flip-flopping from one to the other and not quite not quite getting their strategy spot on in terms of identifying the guy and going and getting it done. Because I mean, if you're cynical about it, I mean, you probably could ask the question, if it was going to be Russell Martin, why couldn't it have been done long before now? I mean, Russell Martin's been out of job since December, I think. Philippe Clement was sacked on February 23rd. I mean, I suppose you could say that this could have been done long ago. This could have been done while Barry Ferguson was an interim charge, and Rangers as a club might be further ahead in terms of their preparations for next season. I mean, even if the new guy, or if Russell Martin's appointed in the next couple of days, I still don't think Rangers have got a lot of time to get their ducks in a row and get stuff organised for the start of this new season.
Cammy, from your point of view as a former player, how disruptive is it to be either in the changing room or be heavily linked with Rangers and just not know?
Yeah, listen, there is an element of the players that are there and know they're going to be there next season. It is disruptive for them because, again, you don't know who's your manager's going to be. You don't know which direction the club are going in. If you're going to be part of that journey, yes, you'll have a contract, but is it a case that the style of manager that's coming in doesn't suit your play? So it is slightly disruptive. And again, the players will just be on their holidays at the moment. They'll be getting prepared to come back for pre-season as fit as they can because it's an opportunity for them as well. They can see it as being disruptive, but also come back as an opportunity, a fresh face in the club and somebody they can go and try and impress from day one. So it's not ideal, I don't think, from a player's point of view, but again, they just need to deal with that and come back ready to go.
Your view on Russell Martin, and I wonder whether, and I'm trying to be respectful here, but whether the allure of the continental name, I mean, here we are struggling to know whether we say David, or is it just Big Davy Ancelotti that was potentially coming to Rangers? Was that more of an interest for a fan base that's maybe looking for a bit of something intriguing, something that we maybe don't know about, but it could be exciting, as opposed to Russell Martin, who we know struggled at Southampton in the early part of the season before being sacked?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's not as sexy as these types of managers that are from overseas. And again, the names that are getting bandied about, I don't think it's that blockbuster one that's coming in. So I think there's some Rangers fans straight away a little bit negative about this appointment if it happens. But again, you've got to give Russell Martin the opportunities. He's done well at Swansea and obviously MK Dons, where he started his kind of managerial career. Yes, he had that difficult period with Southampton last season in the Premier League. I think it was 1 win in 16 and then got sacked. So he didn't have a good record there. But again, we know how difficult the Premier League is for these new clubs coming up. So whoever gets the job, the Rangers fans need to back him. This is the time they need to stick together. They need to get behind the manager, and that's the board as well. And I'm pretty sure the board will back him as much as they can. There's got to be a redirection in this football club because for so long it's been going in the wrong direction and not moving forward. So yes, listen, the manager's one part of the jigsaw, but there's certainly a lot else that needs to be put in place as well.
Cammy, just before I bring in Scott again, nail something for me. This rather cliched, tired, journalistic trope about players having to know the club, about having to get what a certain club is all about. Russell Martin having played at Ibrox, does that in any way give him an advantage if he is to be the manager coming in, that he knows what Rangers is about?
Yeah, I genuinely think so. Being there myself as a player and having that experience, I think it's really difficult from people, certainly from out with the country and don't know much about Rangers Football Club, of understanding the size of the club, the expectations of the club, the pressures of the club. All these things can get thrown at you, but until you actually experience it, I don't think you can really, really understand it. And again, I would say that that's one thing that Russell Martin's had. He had a short, brief spell at Rangers, but he understands the size, the pressure, the expectation that's going to be there daily. And sometimes I think some managers come over here and there's clubs that have got bigger stadiums, more money than Rangers football clubs, but might not have the demands that the fans put on managers and players. So I think that is a factor, and I think that'll play in the favour of Russell Martin as well.
Scott, Russell Martin back at Ibrox. Is that an opening day at the stadium for next season that will galvanise everybody at the club under the new owners and now under the new manager?
I think it could, Phil, and I think it could because of Russell Martin and because of the way he speaks and the way he comes across. I think he'll win a lot of people over very early because of his character and his personality. I agree with you in terms of the fans just now. It might feel a bit underwhelming, and listen, in time they might prove to be right about that. But I think they have to give him a chance. I agree with Cammy. I think they have to get behind him and try and be positive with every managerial appointment. I think there's going to be good points and bad points. I totally agree with Cammy. I think the fact that it has been at Rangers before is a big help because people who haven't, they will come in and eventually they will get it and they will buy into it and understand it. But it takes time, and you've not got time as Rangers manager. I know for a fact when Russell Martin came as a player, because I've spoken to some of his teammates at the time, and it did take him aback when he first arrived. He thought he knew what Rangers was all about and he thought he knew how big it was. But the level of intensity and scrutiny and pressure that he felt surprised him. So he quickly began to understand it. And I think that will be key for him if he comes in this time, because he'll know there's no settling in period for him. He'll know that he has to win almost immediately. The big thing with Russell Martin, I'm sure Cammy will agree, is about the style of play, and because it's so distinct, he's so renowned for playing in a certain way. It's about how quickly he can implement that with a group of players that are already there, and then how good the recruitment is in terms of getting people in who suit that style of play. But I think Rangers do need someone with a distinct style of play, and I'm sure that'll have been another key factor in terms of the new people coming in at Ibrox, and in terms of deciding who the new manager is going to be. I think they'll have looked at his experience and his kind of history, the way he plays, and that'll have been a big box ticked for them. But it's how quickly he can get that going.
Yeah, so much speculation. Of course, the back pages again this morning almost united with their view that it's going to be Russell Martin. But then just a few days ago, we had that with David Ancelotti. Whoever is unveiled as the Rangers manager, you know that we'll bring it to you. And we'll also put out a special podcast as well on that. Talking of special podcasts, and just to switch sports for just a second, really big weekend coming up in the rugby. Tom English and Andy Burke, they're looking ahead with the great Irish rugby pundit Bernard Jakeman. The Warriors travelling to Leinster this weekend for the semi-final in the URC playoff. You'll get that at BBC Sounds. Let's talk Scotland. 2 friendlies to come over the next few days, starting at Hampden on Friday night against Iceland. Cameron Bell. If only we had a Cameron Bell to stick the keeper's gloves on at Hampden on Friday night. You know, I felt really sorry for Angus Gunn yesterday because here he is, potentially getting a chance to reclaim a spot with the national side, and all the journos were interested in asking him was, you played with Russell Martin at Norwich, didn't you? What sort of a guy is he? What's your take on the so-called Scotland goalkeeping crisis?
My take on it is that we've had it so good for so long now. Again, we had 3, for me, top class goalkeepers at one period of time with regards to Alan McGregor, Craig Gordon, David Marshall.
That's 4.
Listen, I managed to squeeze myself into a couple of squads for a period of time. But again, it just showed that the level of these guys, I got to work very closely with them. You obviously seen them and played against them. They were top elite goalkeepers for me. Yes, there's a drop-off at the moment. Again, Angus Gunn's playing at a decent level, or obviously I know he's a free agent now, but has been playing at a decent level in the sort of English Championship. But that's nowhere near where we've had goalkeepers in Craig Gordon and Alan McGregor playing top European football, playing for our 2 big clubs up here. And I just feel as if there is a drop-off. There's no getting away from it. There is a drop-off in the goalkeeping department. It's how we fix that, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time. There's no distinctive name that's younger out there that really looks like they're going to accelerate forward and be our goalkeeper for the next 10, 15 years. So it's going to be interesting.
Cammy, in rugby at Murrayfield, I know that there's ongoing searches around the world for players who either have residency for a bloodline, that they could come across and claim a place with the national side, or that they could move here on rugby's residency grounds and live in Scotland for a number of years and then play for their national side. Do you think that perhaps we need to think about doing something similar if we have problem areas like the goalkeeping? And I'm sure that Hampden have scouts and people all around the world that's potentially inquiring whether a great junior keeper might have a Scottish great auntie or a grandmother. But do you think that this is an area that perhaps we've maybe not exploited as much as we could do?
Potentially, yes, but again, I kind of look back and where are we going wrong with the goalkeepers at this moment in time in our own country, the ones that are born here, and I feel like I don't see as many young goalkeepers going out on loan and playing. The ones that are at our top club, when I was younger, 17, went out to Montrose. I think the goalkeepers that have got futures in them have to be out on loan as soon as they can, playing senior football and then developing their loans throughout. So I think we've changed our loan system a little bit over the summer, so hopefully that helps. I know Steve Clark's touching it as well. We don't get a lot of our younger goalkeepers out. We tend to see them sitting on the bench, not playing any football, and the next thing we know, they're 25-year-old and they've played 10 senior football games. And that for me is the issue.
Do you think that that's because they play in such a specific position? It's not like sending out a young fullback or a young winger to try and get game time. It's the fact that the goalkeeper, the buck stops with you guys. So if you were to blood a player who has a terrible game, they're almost brandished with being a terrible player right from the start.
Yeah, listen, but what I would say is I think what happens to goalkeepers, certainly the younger ones that are good and potentially have a future, they don't get that game time because a lot of managers just see them as a good number two, a cheap option, an option that they can sit on the bench and they can do a job if they get the opportunity, but they're relying on their number one not getting injured. So I think that's where we're falling down at this moment in time. We're not allowing these young kids to go out on loan. We're actually using them, holding them back. And then, as I say, they end up turning up 25, 26, and they've actually not played any games. We've seen it with Robbie McCrory for a long period at Rangers. He sat there as number 3. I think he should have been out playing football. And if he had been playing football, first-team football, his development in his goalkeeping career would have been well away ahead of where he is at the moment.
Scott, just on that idea of searching the world for somebody that has a Scottish bloodline, I mean, do you think that that's something that we are doing well, that doesn't fit with our sort of national psyche? An idea that we draw up, right, here's 3 problem positions that we need to find solutions for in the next 2 years, so let's scour the world and try and find a promising player that actually has a Scottish bloodline.
I don't think we're doing it well enough at the moment, Phil. I mean, I think Steve Clark has admitted that. I think it was when he named the latest squad, he was very open about saying that they've taken their eye off the ball when it comes to the goalkeeping situation. And nowadays, the way football is, how global it is, and the way the game's going, I don't think there's any shame in admitting that you're looking further afield for, as you say, people with Scottish grandparentage or whatever it might be. I mean, you look at other countries who are doing it all the time. I mean, we can't afford to just sit and be proud and say, no, the guy has to be born in Scotland. That's just not the way the game is now. So I don't think we've done it well enough. I do think they are working on it. You have heard certain things. There's a keeper in America just now, whose name escapes me, but he's got a Scottish background who they're looking at. In terms of young Scottish keepers, the boy that went from Queen's Park to Bournemouth, I think he's been training this week with the Scotland team. So I do think they are looking at. They're trying to find someone that they're probably doing everything they can at the moment, but it might be a wee bit too late. I think Steve Clark was right that this is something that should have been identified when McGregor, Marshall, Craig Gordon were coming towards the end. But I totally agree with Cammy. I think we get so complacent and we took those guys for granted and just felt that the next one would come off the production line, and it hasn't really happened. I mean, Robbie McCrory's the one who has always been spoke about as the next guy to come through. But as Cammy touched on, it just hasn't happened for him for a number of reasons. It still might. I mean, he obviously has to be Kelly's number one, playing every week. I do think he's capable, but injuries have kind of held him back. He's been in and out of the team since he went to Rugby Park. He just hasn't kicked on the way we expected him to. But yeah, something's got to give, and I think we do need to scour everywhere to try and find someone that's good enough.
Of course, the perennial issue for Scotland is to try and find a number 9 to bang in the goals. If only we could get Kathleen McGovern to play both the women's side and the men's side, because last night she scored the equaliser for Scotland in the Netherlands. That one finished 1-1 for Scotland's women. You can look back at that. There's highlights at the website. Of course, the build-up to the Iceland game at Friday night in the men's friendly at Hampden. You continue to get that with us. Right, let's talk Neil Lennon and Dunfermline. Cammy, if you welcomed a new manager into your championship dressing room and he says, this could be a top 6 club in the country, we should be playing regularly in Europe, it's a long-term ambition, but it's one that we should all work towards, what would you think? Because that was quite the stark wish list that Neil Lennon gave us yesterday.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind it. I think he's very ambitious. I think as a player, you hear all these things, and when you certainly see Neil Lennon stand in front of you and say that to you, you believe it, because I've been in a changing room, he's been my manager for a short period, and understand that everything he says, you do listen, you respect him. He's had a brilliant career in the game, both playing and managing. So I just think it's an ambitious statement. I think it's an honest statement where he sees the club could potentially go. He knows it's not going to happen overnight. I know he's maybe said it might happen quicker than the reality might kick in. But if that's the ambition and where the club want to be, then why not say it? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Let's be positive about it and think, well, do you know what? They've got ambitions, they've got a plan, they've got a strategy to get there. And it's up to Neil Lennon to then create that and make sure that he gets the players in, gets them out of the championship and then moves them forward. So I absolutely don't mind it, and I wouldn't mind hearing that as a player either.
Scott, as you know, on our side of the fence, having a manager say something that you can then hit him over the head with when things are going wrong is our stock trade. And I actually despise that, because I like it when a manager answers a question and comes out and gives you something. But of course, the problem is, if they don't start well, if Dunfermline end up sort of trailing the leaders by a few points come October, November time, you can imagine the chance by the visiting fans to East End Park on when are you going to be playing in Europe next season.
Yeah. But no one will know that better than Neil Lennon, Phil. No, he's been in the game long enough. I agree with Cam. I think it's brilliant. And it's typical of him. And I'm talking about the players. I mean, I think it just kind of lays down the gauntlet to the players. To me, that's Neil Lennon saying, look, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm taking this club. If you want to be part of it, then come and join me. But if not, you'll be moved on. And I think if Dunfermline are going to get back to those heights, that's what they need. There's no reason why they shouldn't be where he wants to take them. No, with all due respect, if a club like St Mirren can go and be regular top 6 and try and get into Europe, then I think Dunfermline should be thinking they can do the same. Obviously, the new owners have come in, big ambitions. I think Neil Lennon's a terrific appointment for them. No, such a big name, big character, personality, exactly what they need if you're going to have those kind of lofty ambitions. But I think for the players it'll be ideal. I think if you're a player, that's exactly what you want to hear. I read these quotes and saying they could get there in 2 years, which might be over ambitious, but
I think probably, to be fair to him, although the quotes read that, I think what he might have been meaning is that within a year or two we want to see the direction of travel go that way. I don't think he's suggesting that they're going to qualify for the European League after year 2, although when you read the quote, it does appear to be more like that than not. You can actually hear what Neil Lennon said in an extended interview. He had a one-to-one with our reporter Brian McLaughlin at East End Park yesterday. When he was having his press conference. That'll be available for a podcast for you a little later today. BBC Sounds is where you'll get that. Guys, listen, I'm starting to get shouted at, which my producer loves to do of a morning that I'm doing the pod, so I'm going to wrap it up there. Scott McDermott, thank you very much indeed. Cameron Bell, we will speak to you again soon with your full title involved. Remember, Iceland, Scotland, Friday night at Hampden. The build-up continues with us here. I know it's a friendly, but it's the end of the season, and it might be quite nice to have something to cheer at Hampden on Friday night. Let's hope so. For now, I'm Phil Goodlad. Enjoy our beautiful game, and we'll speak again soon.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
They caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.